What's going on, folks? Happy summer. Welcome to Got Your Back, bonus episode, summer live stream edition. Ryan McLeod here in the Got Your Back studios in Sherwood Park. Jason Strudwick and Zuby are standing by. How's your July been so far? Let's get into some Oiler talk. Midsummer, why not? A couple of big signings that have to happen this offseason. We'll check in on the situation with Ryan McLeod and with Evan Bouchard and talk about some possibilities for the Oiler lineup this upcoming season. Got Your Back brought to you by our good friends at Mr. Dirk, located just off White Avenue and 102nd Street. They are your one-stop shop for all of your clothing needs. You want to sharpen up those suits? They got you covered. Casual wear? Also got you covered. It's a beautiful shop just off White Avenue and 102nd Street. Go see Sterling, Dan, the great crew down at Mr. Dirk. I missed you guys. Small hiatus, not potting as much this summer. Everybody needs a little bit of a break, but I have to say I have missed hopping on to this program and talking a little hockey. How are we doing, Struddy? How are you, buddy?
I too have had a good summer, Shogger.
You have.
I won't go as far as say I missed you. I missed Zub. Zub and I have I probably shouldn't even say this, but Zuby and I have a side text going, so we text a lot.
What?
Yes.
It's like without the boss man, it's called. So
do you guys talk do you guys text each other when I don't know, or is it only on our group chat?
No, it's a side text, side deal. I believe we have.
Really?
You got to complain about the boss, right? We bitch about what you would say sometimes and whatever, but all in all, it's pretty positive, isn't it, Zoobs?
And there's a fair bit of discussion about the Bachelorette on there too. That's kind of that's more of the running thread.
You guys can have your chat. Yeah, exclude me from that crap for sure, for sure. Zuby, what's been going on with you, buddy?
Oh, I got a quick story to tell because I'm very excited. Very excited.
Okay, you like stories.
Recognized for the first time. I got recognized for the first time, and I figured how I would get recognized for the first time would be across the Costco parking lot with someone noticing my hat or the classic blue hoodie and being like, Zuby!
Hey!
That's what I thought it would be, but this was much better. I was playing hockey in my beer league summer series on Monday evening, and coming off the ice, a player from the other team's coming out behind him, coming off at the back of the bench. We had just got smoked, by the way, but I see this hulking guy coming down in their jersey to talk to me, and he goes, hey, are you the guy who does all those podcasts with Terry Ryan? And I said, yes, I said, yes, I am. Anyway, he's like, I read your name on the back of your jersey, which I thought that like he could, I had my lid on. He couldn't really see my face or anything like that. So he recognized me from my last name, and he's a buddy of TR's. His name's Merle. He was a really good guy. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that.
Love
name,
it. That is totally the name of a guy that would be buddies with TR.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, guys,
super nice guy.
Merle.
Yeah. Nice guy, hulking lad, and it was really cool to be recognized for the first time and in that manner, and have it tie back to TR as well. I haven't told him yet, but I'm going to shoot him a message.
Struddy, do you remember what it felt like to be recognized back when you were somebody?
Yeah, I'm more recognizable now for the hockey camps I run than for the actual hockey I played.
Coach Struds. It's more Coach Struds, and they realize, you played.
I'm really popular with the 8 to 14-year-old demographic. That's my big group right there.
Nice. Okay, so we are live streaming. We're up on Twitter and on YouTube for now until it crashes, and then we're not. But stay with us. So we are going to take some comments in our final segment today. So if you have any questions, Struds and I are going to dig in on Ryan McLeod and Evan Bouchard here, talk a little bit about possibilities for strategy, right? What the Oiler lineup could look like to start the season, what it could look like come playoff time, how Ken Holland should handle this time. The typical off-season talk about what lineups will look like in February, because that's the way we roll here in Edmonton. So by all means, send us your thoughts, send us your comments. And honestly, we'll kind of take questions about whatever. Summer stuff, hockey related, doesn't really matter. It's summertime. We're all kind of half off anyways right now. So send us some comments, some thoughts on the stream. Zuby will track those, and we'll get to them in a little bit. Let's get to the breakdown, though, brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. Supplying maintenance-free fencing and decking products, high-quality stuff. If you've got wood in your backyard and you know it's time to make a change, DLR vinyl products can help you do that. You don't have to sand, stain, paint, nothing like that. They make it easy. It goes in once. It looks fantastic, basically forever. Really high quality, maintenance-free stuff. They've got locations in Calgary and in Edmonton. Rick runs the branch here in Edmonton. Give him a shout, or Rob out in Calgary. So Struds, 2 deals, Ryan McLeod, Evan Bouchard. We know Bouchard will get paid more. Fair to say that, McLeod has filed for arbitration here, so we'll see how far this goes. But this Bouchard contract and where this number comes in, this is pretty important for this team. They don't have a lot of space. We know it's going to be a bridge deal. I think this might hurt a little bit for them, though, because I don't think it's going to be less than $4 million. I think it'll be 4+.
You think it's 4+? Wow.
I do think so, man. I do.
Oh, geez, I got to take a drink here. Hold on. Okay, so what is that when I see Andre Miller and Bowen Byram jump in and do the numbers they did? I see guys that are comparable in points and then actually play more minutes than Bouchard. What makes you think it's going to be more than 4?
Yeah, I just, and we can pull those other guys up. Yeah, I think that for him to be running that power play and for the number of points that he's going to get, right? So if you're Bouchard's camp, what those numbers are going to look like playing an entire season on that power play and running it the way he's going to, which he did not do this previous season. I think it's going to creep up into that range. I think it probably started above that. Now these deals do help, like they do for sure. Huge. But I think that Bouchard is in a little bit of a different position here potentially.
That's interesting because I see if I'm the owners, I say if he's the quarterback of the Flames power play, how many points does he get this year? And I think the Oilers are going to push back, and I would push back saying, where are all the points coming from? Do they start with number 2 or do they start with number 2, 9, and 9, 7?
I know that's the argument, Struds, but at what point are points just points?
Yeah, no, I get it. But, there's third assists, of which I probably led the league 3 years in a row. But you've got to be, I think for the Oilers, you've got to push back a little bit here. Say, listen, we understand what you're saying. We get it. But you're not going to arbitration. Here, look at these 2 guys. These 2 other guys being Bowen Byram and Andre Miller. The points last year were the exact same. Now, you may get more points this year. But if those 2 guys are running this power play, do you think they get more points as well? So I understand what you're saying. That's an angle I hadn't considered. Because I thought after the Andre Miller and Bowen Byram, it was like slam dunk. Here, take yours. Give me 3-9, whatever it is, or whatever the number is. Now, 2 years from now, you're gonna have a big problem because that number. You're right. He's gonna get a lot of points, but you also have to remember, like if he was going to free agency, let's say he was going to free agency this year, like a UFA status, our team's gonna pay the same dollar for what he's doing on this power play as he would coming to Columbus to run it with Laine, Johnny Gaudreau, and whoever, Johnson. That's the risk, man.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Here's the thing. Something just adjusted there. We still good there, Zuby?
You're good.
Okay, sorry, something tweaked here on what I'm seeing, so I just want to make sure we're all good. This is the interesting dynamic on the Oilers blue line, Struds. How many other teams are there that have a $9.25 million defenseman who doesn't run the power play?
Yeah.
So by paying a guy that much money who doesn't run the power play and then putting someone else on that power play to amass those points with those guys, now you're basically having to pay 2 guys top dollar, right? So for Nurse to be at what he's at and not be the quarterback of the power play, it means they require another offensive defenseman who's going to push huge numbers playing with those guys, and you're going to have to pay them. That's the fundamental flaw on the blue line, is that your highest paid guy is not the quarterback on the power play. And he's run it before, and he's run it before with a certain level of success as well. But it definitely is different, and it causes problems for the financial structure of the blue line because Bouchard in that spot is an offensive defenseman. He piled up the points when he really started to get that opportunity and really changed the look of this contract with the way he finished and how well he played and just the sheer number of points that he put up. But it's very rare to have a guy not run the power play and make that money.
you think that they talk at all about his first half of his year and say,
Oh yeah,
no power play. This is where you're at. And listen, we all know he's running the power play. So I'm being a bit of the devil's advocate here, but you have to, now his confidence comes through getting points, getting cookies. And I know offensive players hate it when guys like me say that, but it's true. Like whether you're Nugent Hopkins or Connor McDavid or whoever, you're getting points like that. You just love it. You just feel good about yourself. So Bouchard's game exploded. It also happens to be with Ekholm, right? Like, so it was Ekholm coming over. It was getting power play time. And all of a sudden his game all came together. If they hadn't made that trade, what's the number look like now? And I know you can't always say that, but it is reality. You have to look at everything. Say, buddy, let's just look where we're at. So I'd be really surprised if it was over 4. I thought it was 3. I think 3.9 2 years, and now you got a real problem in 2 years because
so
he's going to put a ton of points out.
You put Bowen Byram out there, right? So fair enough, and that's a comparable right now in terms of a guy who's just signed. So Byram, 3 assists in the 7 playoff games that he played. 42 regular season games at his 24 points, but 3 assists in the playoffs. Like where it starts to come off the rails argument wise for Evan Bouchard is, the guy had 17 points in 12 playoff games.
Yeah. No,
I mean, the guy had 13 assists, scored 4 goals, played 23 minutes a night in the playoffs. At the most important time of year, he absolutely blew the doors off for, and these other, like Bowen Byram did not. So you want to talk about the first half of his year, they go, okay, you want to use those guys as comps? Sure. First half of the year wasn't great. How about the playoffs? And how does that factor in?
Yeah, I think, well, let's go back. What were his playoff totals 2 years ago when they won the Stanley Cup? And he was arguably their second best defenseman on a Stanley Cup winning team. I would,
it's a good point by you. That's a good platform year.
Yeah. So I would suggest that he, that year after Cale Makar, I would say that Byram was better for long stretches than Taves or Johnson or, the little guy, he wasn't there, but I wouldn't have him there anyway.
Gerard. Yeah.
But so that's fair. Yeah. You good. He had a good playoff run. Good. Well, this guy won a Stanley Cup 2 years ago, a Stanley Cup, playing in massive games as massive amount of their players. And I don't have his totals in front of me. I'm guessing he didn't get 17 points, but he played a massive amount and he was trusted all over the ice. So I just don't think that neither side have to overcomplicate this. He's getting a big raise. We know the point total he's going to put up. In 2 years, this is going to be a mess to try to sign and try to figure out what it's going to look like. But for right now, I just don't think it's that hard. Like if you put Bowen Byram over here running this power play for the Oilers, now he doesn't have the shot that Bouchard does. He skates well. I think he's quite a heady player. Mm-hmm. Would his point totals be that much off of what Bouchard's going to put up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, probably not. Like you just need a skill, and this is the conundrum for the Oilers, right? How much can you pay a guy to pass the puck to McDavid and Draisaitl on the power play? How much can you, and I guess here would be the other question. And I'm not suggesting that they should trade Evan Bouchard or anything like that. But there is part of me that goes, if you're paying Nurse what you're paying him, what if you just gave him the power play? Like what if Nurse just ran the Oiler power play? How many points do you think he'd get? And how much of a drop off do you think there would be on that power play? Probably some. He's not as dynamic offensively, and we know that as Evan Bouchard. But Nurse pushed quite a decent number of points this year and basically barely played on the power play at all. So does it make sense to pay a guy that much and not have him running the power play? Because if you didn't pay Bouchard the dollars you're going to have to pay him to run the power play, you can invest that money in a pure defensive guy and have Nurse being the guy that's pushing the offense on the power play. They've tried it before. It's worked reasonably well. And then you end up in this Barry Bouchard combo for the last few seasons here, where Nurse is like, Nurse has done this before. It's just an interesting dynamic that they're going to have to pay a guy what they're going to have to pay him to run that power play when they got a $9+ million guy sitting there.
Yeah, the problem that happens, and I hear what you're saying. The reality is that once you're saying that you let Nurse get as many points as you want because it's not going to affect his contract. Then you suppress.
You're already paying him. You're paying him like a guy that should pile up the points.
So then you suppress Bouchard's totals by not being on the power play. I understand that. The problem that is in like game mode, now Nurse is eating top line power play, top line penalty kill, and top line minutes, right? And I know that he's paid to do that, but it doesn't work. It's just too much hockey.
Yeah, that's fair.
And not that Nurse isn't physically able to handle it. It's just that that's a lot of hockey. And then other people don't get involved in the game. So if you're going to do that, no problem. Then you take Nurse out of the penalty kill. He becomes second pairing penalty kill. So then that'd make Ekholm Bouchard 1-2 on the penalty kill, right? That's kind of how you'd have to stack it up. And then CC Nurse would be the second option on that penalty kill. And I'm not sure that's the best way to go for the Oilers right now. So that's the challenge. Like everything has a cause and effect, right? There's nothing that is touched in a vacuum, or that works within a vacuum for the Oilers.
By the way, the other guy who could probably do just fine running a power play is Ekholm. The guy's sneaky good. I mean, we saw what he was able to do offensively. Like, pretty good, man. You know, he's had 44 points in this league before. You know, a couple of 30-plus point seasons. Bouchard is the guy, and he's shown that he's ready. He's shown, right? He's the guy. He absolutely is. It's just an awkward spot to be paying a guy what they're paying Nurse and not running the power play. So now you got to put someone else in the catbird seats and let them get their cookies, and now you got to pay them too. So what are you going to have? $2, $9, $10 million defensemen in a couple seasons here, and think you're going to be able to re-sign Draisaitl and McDavid? Like, the money's going to run out at a certain point. How do you pay Bouchard in a couple years when hopefully for them they've got the McDavid contract coming on the books?
So let's look at it a different way. Remember when Shattenkirk became a free agent?
Yeah.
You know, he didn't get a massive ton of cash. Tyson Barrie didn't get he got a lot of money, but not like top pairing defenseman cash. So I think for Bouchard to move past what we're talking about here, even if he puts up all those points, people are going to, if he hit the UFA mark, and they say, this is a product of being on that power play, right? That's what I think they'd say. Now, they do their homework and look into it, but can we right now, if you use on a UFA, would you say Evan Bouchard is a number 2 defenseman? Can anyone say that? So you don't have to pay him as such, right? He's right now a 4 or 5. And until he proves that's different by the way he plays, you know, all the time. And this isn't because I'm saying
4 or 5,
badly.
He's 4 or 5 right now?
I would say a 4 or 5.
So that's borderline second pairing D-man you're talking about on a good team.
Well, right. But
I think that's not giving him enough credit for the step he took halfway through the season. I think he took a massive step and proved to me for sure he's a second pairing guy. I'd say based on what we saw from him for the finish of the season and the playoffs, he's a 3 all day for me.
So halfway through the year. So there's 2 seasons this year he had.
Yeah.
Which one's the truth? Which one's, and I want to find out, because after the previous year in the playoffs, I said, oh, this guy's taking a step. Came back a little bit, right? Came back to where, oh man, what is this guy? And I remember halfway through the season saying, no, he's costing himself a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And then Barry's traded, Ekholm comes over, boom, and he takes off. So where does he start this year? I'm guessing that the insulation that's unfair to say. Having a partnership with Ekholm and running the power play, he'll take off from where he started last year or finished the year. That's what I'm thinking. But I thought that the previous year as well.
Yeah.
We thought he'd take a step. So he's still a player finishing his game. And I think the areas that I think he needs to tighten up a little bit are very manageable. What he has, the shot, the awareness, the passing ability, you know, the ice in his veins, those are things that are very difficult to teach and to grow as a player.
Right.
The areas I'm talking about are pretty easy to fix. And I think he can do it.
Yeah. So, you know, and I'll walk my comment back a little bit because you made an excellent point. So really, what's the difference between a 3 and a 4? Or a 3 and a 4 or 5 or whatever? The one thing I'll concede to you is where the change happened, both the negative change, his game went the wrong way, was when he was the senior guy on the pairing most nights. And where it went the right way was when he was insulated, and I will use that word, by a guy like Matthias Ekholm, the veteran.
Sure.
So I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I do think that to qualify as a legit 3, which is you are a second pairing defenseman, shouldn't matter who your partner is. Your game is your game. And if you're a legit number 3 defenseman, shouldn't matter who your partner is. And what we don't know is how Bouchard will handle himself regardless of who he plays with. So I I think that's probably fair. He's kind of that tweener, 3-4 tweener, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that's when you're a legit second pair defenseman, you just play. And it's not like how it went this year at the beginning of the year. So
Yeah.
listen, I think it's gonna be fascinating how this plays out. I think that Ken Holland has a good sense with the money he has left about what he has to pay these two guys, McLeod and Bouchard. I think that, you know, you look at last year, McLeod ended up right in the little area he had to be in. Now McLeod won't get to he'll get a raise, but you know, these I think he has a sense of where they're going to end up, and he's going to toggle it down as much as he can by 100 grands to get it down so he has the most money left. But he'll fit it within both guys within there. But after this, you know, I think that Bouchard to me is pretty clear. There's going to be a battle in 2 years if it is a 2-year deal, but what he gets for money, because I just keep saying it. If he was a UFA, how much is he getting paid? Is he the catalyst? Like, is he like Erik Karlsson? Would you say that he is like Erik Karlsson, the way that he can produce points and to get that number to 11 million? Now, I'm not suggesting Bouchard is getting to 11, but you're 8 or 9. You better be a guy that literally is the catalyst on the power play. I don't think he is.
Really? Do you need that to get 8 or 9 Struds? Is that what it's shown to be in the past, that you need 8 or 9 to get 8 or 9? Well, I think there's a guy skating around out there for the Oilers that has shown you don't have to be that to get 8 or 9 million in this league.
And that's fair, but I'm talking about a power play guy, because I don't think Bouchard's going to be mistaken for a shutdown hard defenseman, right? And that's, I'm not trying to be mean. That's just
he is what he is. Yeah.
And so, you know, if a team brings in Evan Bouchard, they're bringing in a power play guy, and they're thinking, so if I have Erik Karlsson as in my number one, or Cale Makar is that, and he is the cat, like both those guys, I believe, are the catalyst for the power play. I think that's fair when you watch those guys teams play. They are. Is Bouchard in the same position?
Well, we don't know. I mean, he's handing off all the time, right? Like, that's when you've got those guys on your power play.
That's right.
He might be able to be more dynamic if he were more selfish with it on the power play. Maybe. I don't know. Teams could maybe look at him and go, he's constantly passing off. If that guy actually hangs on to the puck, wait till you see what he can do. Maybe. I don't know. But really fair points, man. Really fair points. Yeah. So what's the point range for him? Like 60 to 70? Can he get 70 points? 75 points running that power play if he stays healthy?
40? He had 40, 45 or something last year?
1 sec. I'll grab it here. Yeah, he was...
40. He was right on 40 in 82 games.
Yeah. But only contributing for half a season. He went dry goals-wise for I think it was like a 30-plus game drought.
The first half of the year was just... I remember thinking, this guy has cost himself tons of money.
Yeah.
Tons of money. And they maybe should have wrapped him up then. They should have gone to him and said, buddy, you're tanking it out. Let's sign you right now.
Let's move over to Ryan McLeod here, Struddy. So files for arbitration. I think this one is, I could see this one actually going to arbitration. I know teams like to settle last minute, but this could be a difficult one, because if you recall last year, Ryan McLeod took the qualifying offer, right?
Yeah.
He did. And there was no choice. He had no negotiating power, no leverage whatsoever. The team kind of said, it is what it is. And I'm sure there's conversations that happen behind the scenes about, well, if you do this now, then down the road, it'll mean this and this. Well, they're down the road a little bit here, and the Oilers have no space for it to be this and this for him. So I'm not sure how this one's going to go, man, but I think my sense is the McLeod camp, it's 2+ all day long for them as a starting point. I think the Oilers want it to come in under 2 million, and that sweet spot might be right in and around that range.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that of the two the two free agents, or the two restricted
RFAs,
free agents, this is the guy to me that has the most to benefit from a short-term contract. I don't think we've seen always the complete player yet in Ryan McLeod. You know, we see the speed. I say it all the time. He's got to use that speed though by driving the puck to the net. And when we see it, he becomes a different player. When we don't, it's a little bit more perimeter. So I think that this guy being Ryan McLeod, I think I think the Oilers probably want a 2-year deal. Maybe he does 2 to get a little bit of that stability. But I want to try to. I think his big negotiating days. This isn't it. Like, he had 11 goals last year and maybe 10 the year before, whatever it is. But I think he could jump like 15 or 20, up to 15 or 20 if he adds that to his game. Otherwise, he's probably destined to be, a $2 to $3 million player. is how I see him. So like Bouchard's pretty clear what's going to happen. This guy, it's not as clear to me for him. And I think he's really got to kind of get his game back to, or not back, but at a level where he's playing the same every night. And that'll be a huge impact for the Oilers, but also on his dollar earning.
Yeah, for sure. So if he starts doing something that he consistently hasn't done through 138 NHL games so far, and I agree with you, he's a different player when he does that. And he's shown that he's willing at times, but have you seen a player go from a guy that wasn't really in his nature to take it hard to the net to all of a sudden a guy that, man, did he figure it out? Look at him go. Have you seen that before? I'm not saying he can't change. I just, it's rare. Like, it's hard to coach that in or build that into a guy who doesn't come with that as part of his ingredients.
So let's just say, let's say what's happened to Kyler Yamamoto and Puljujärvi. So they were kind of kicking around that 1.5, and they both bumped up to $3 million. Now one's probably out of the league, injury related, and the other one got bought out and signed a deal for half of what he was making with Seattle. So Ryan McLeod, let's say he jumps up to $2.5 million and he scores 12 goals next year, what do you think the response is from the experts out there?
Yeah.
We're all saying, oh, geez, that's an expensive deal. Well, no, he kills penalties. He's on the second unit power play. That's probably a fair deal. Well, Ryan, look at what's his name? Fogle. I think he had 15 goals last year. He's at 2.75. Ooh, man, that guy makes a lot of cash for that kind of production, right? So that's what I'm saying. If you only get to 11 or 12 goals, your ceiling gets shut off pretty quick. Well, now the salary cap will go up next year, so I might free up a little bit of space. But
no, they've already spent that, buddy. That's Connor Brown's bonuses.
Yeah, fair.
They've already spent next year's cap increase.
Fair point. But you have to look at it this way, like that's the reality, right? That he is. What is his ceiling? If you only get to 11 or 12 goals because that's how you play, does your ceiling get any higher? Like what did Andrew Calgano? What was the most he ever made? $3 million?
Yeah.
And I'm
I
not
think
saying
he's in that range on one of his deals.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong. I would have loved to make $3 million. People say, "Oh man, that's his ceiling." But when you without that ability to score more, it's hard for you to get up into that 4, 5, 6 range, right? So I think that to get to that level, he's got to add things to his game. And if I was his agent, I'd be like, "Buddy, look at these games you played. Look how you played, and then look at these ones. Like, you need to get there." So yeah, so we can okay. Let's say it's 2.1. Okay, I can. That's where it's at. But if he only scores 12 goals the next 2 years, is he going to jump to 4?
Yeah, he falls into that category, to your point of, he's not scoring enough to justify that, and on a team that needs bargain players, now you end up in that situation like we've seen a couple of decent players land in, between Yamamoto and even Fogle a little bit now. Cogliano was 3.25. He did a 3-year, $9.75 million deal. Paul Capizano, his agent here. I'm just on Puckpedia right now taking a look at this. So that was a good deal for Cogliano. Back in 18, he did that one.
Yeah, but really hard player to play against. Incredible work ethic. Hard in the puck. Does that sound like McLeod? Yes, some of it does sound like, pretty hard working guy. Fast. But is it all those things? And I'm not here beating up the player. I'm trying to support the player and tell him this is what you need to do if you want to get into the next stratosphere. Because there's a point, like going from $1 to $2 million in today's game isn't that hard, right? Like, it's not crazy. Like what Clean did. Clean put together a pretty good 50 games, and he went from 800 to $2 million. Now, for him to go from 2 to 4, he's got to get 20 goals, 25 goals in a year, right? And that's the reality. That's the game.
Yeah, there are some contracts that make you think they could push it up into that 2 range, and then others that make you go, maybe it's in the mid ones. But history does matter, and Cogliano, and I believe Cogliano's camp feels like they took one for the team last year.
McLeod's, yeah.
Sorry, McLeod's camp feels like they took one for the team last year, and that I think they'll probably be willing to push this thing as far as they need to get whatever that they can get. I don't think there's it'll be interesting to see how far it goes, and if there actually is an arbitrator's decision, or if they get something done in the 11th hour. But important player, inconsistent. His high-end game is inconsistent. The qualities that he needs to bring to be as good as they know he can be, he's been inconsistent in bringing that enough, but a good player. The other issue he has is the Oilers got a bunch of centers, right? They've got, Nugent Hopkins is a center who plays the wing. They've got guys that can be in that spot. But from a depth standpoint, you get down into the lower end of it and in their top six or their bottom six, and it gets a little bit thin in the middle of the ice. So be interesting to see. Okay, let's get to our takeaways segment brought to you by our good friends over at Sherwood Buick GMC, the number one GMC dealership in all of Canada for 5 years running. And they've got trucks in stock, or they can get them in short order. Staff is fantastic. The process is streamlined. They make buying painless and easy. That is Sherwood Buick GMC. So in this segment, Struds, we want to dig in a little bit to what strategy-wise, where the Oilers might land on adding this season. I know fans would have probably liked more in the offseason here. I've been saying for a couple of months not to expect very much, not very much. And that's, Connor Brown was a decent ad, but I think we know that in order for them to get over the hump at playoff time, they need more than what they've currently got. What do you think the pacing of this is? What did they add and when?
Well, first off, let's talk about what they have. And we're looking for internal growth. Or I'm going to talk about internal growth because Oilers are looking for internal growth. Ryan McLeod, I think internal growth. Bouchard, staying where he was at, right? A little bit of internal growth from him. Desharnais, internal growth. I think there's a guy that can get better. Dylan Holloway, internal growth. Another guy that could become more steady. The wild cards for me are like Raphael Lavoie. What can he bring? Can Xavier Bourgault punch his way in? And I think he's probably more likely in the minors. And then the big guy, Broberg. What is Broberg? What can he do? How do they get him minutes, more than 10 minutes a night? And then, can he push someone else out, or can he assert himself and say, buddy, I need more ice time? Then in the pipes, Campbell. What can he do? What is his offseason look like, and what can he add? So and even Stuart Skinner now been a year of a first string goalie. Can he stay at the same level? So all those guys, like, what is that? 7-8 guys I just rattled off internal growth. I think that's huge.
What about internal regression, buds? Because 7 or 8 guys are not going to take a step forward. That's just not the way it goes.
So who do you think the most likely candidate for that is?
Well, I don't want to start. I mean, listen, would I be stunned if Stuart Skinner, with the ball firmly in his hands, maybe stumbled a little bit here and there? Goaltending is tough, right? I'm not saying he's going to, but would any of us be shocked if it was, well, look how many games he's played? And, I don't think we'd be stunned. That happens with goalies sometimes. Who knows what's going to happen here with Philip Broberg, right? Who knows? If they do find a way to actually get him some minutes, will he take a step forward? Dylan Holloway, same thing. Is the staff actually going to play him? Is Dylan Holloway going to get put on the ice enough to grow the way you're describing right now? Or is he going to get 7-8 minutes a night that just basically has him plodding along as a fourth line player? I don't know, because in order for internal growth to happen, there needs to be internal opportunity.
Yeah, no, I'll start with the Skinner one. I think that if Skinner does, he was an all-star last year. That's a pretty good year.
Yeah.
So let's say he softens a little bit. Can Campbell assert himself? I can't see a world in which Campbell has the year last year again this year.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I can't see that. It went so poorly for him, and I'm not beating the player up. Let's just call it what it is. It was a really poor first year in a new team. I think there's a lot of things that affected him, right? And the Oilers are very fortunate Skinner stepped in. So if Skinner comes down a little bit, can Campbell go up, a little bit? So that is where I think it's going to be really, really interesting for this team. And then, Broberg, it's if he regresses, I don't think the team gets hurt. Like, they have as long as no one else falls off in that group, then Dylan Holloway wasn't really a part of the team either. So, these guys, I'm looking at Broberg and Holloway, they're bonus. Raphael Lavoie, bonus, right? But I always see Dylan Holloway, his first year in most places, he's kind of finding his way, and then he takes off the second year. I think I'm not bullish for 20 goals for Holloway, but I'm bullish that he finds a way to impact his team next year.
We'll see. We'll see because Dylan Holloway is going to make some mistakes. He's going to. It's in his game. It's just part of, you can just see it in him, and it's going to happen.
You think it is?
This is going to be about a coaching staff's willingness to push him through whatever mistakes he makes, because they know over the long haul it's something that they just have to do. And I didn't see a staff that was as willing to push him through the mistakes last year as we thought they would be when they said he'd be a top 9 player. Unfair?
Yeah, I don't agree that he's a risk taker. Are you suggesting that Dylan Holloway is a risk taker?
No, I'm not saying risk taker. I'm saying he's prone to young mistakes. He still is.
Yeah. Okay, that's
young
fair.
players trying to break into the NHL and play, with skilled guys and all of that. There's mistakes, right? Like, and he made them last year. And look at his ice time, bud. Look at the ice time Dylan Holloway averaged last season.
Well, throwing the backhand sauce the first game of the year, that's a tough one. But that shouldn't even have to be talked about. Like that is a young player who that's not a play you make, right? It's just, you just don't make that play. So lesson learned. So this year, like for me, Dylan Holloway is at his best when he's playing like Zach Hyman or like even just big, fast, driving the net, getting on pucks, shooting pucks. He can make plays with his buddies, but he doesn't have to make east-west plays until he gets below the top of the circles in the offensive zone. From his own end to the other blue line, you're not crisscrossing. You are just zipping up that ice and using your speed. That's the NHL game that he has. That's at his best, at his peak. That's how he'll use his powers. East-west for him, that's not the game. And quite frankly, there's very few players in the game today that are east-west players to the neutral zone.
9 minutes and 35 seconds average time on ice last season.
He'll get it up there. I'm going to predict 12 minutes a night. I'll throw that out there right now.
12 minutes a night. Wow, man.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. I think
watch him flourish.
Right, but there's some nights where so you have to keep in mind, buddy, there's no penalty killer power play on that, right? Like how's he getting power play? And then penalty kill, I think he should be a penalty killer. Yamamoto's gone, so someone else has to take that spot.
Yeah.
You're really hard on the team for not playing these young guys all the time, but they're trying to win. Like now's the time to win, and you're trying to develop on the fly.
But Struds, this is the problem. When they needed him in the playoffs, when they needed Broberg in the playoffs, they did not know what they had, and they were not trusted players because they didn't commit to a plan during the year. Either play the crap out of them in the American League or have them on the NHL team and play them. So when the games matter most and you ask them to step in, you know what you have, and there's some belief there.
But in Dylan Holloway,
they knew what they plan.
They knew what they had in Dylan. They knew what they had in Dylan Holloway. It was a player that wasn't ready for the
How did they know what they had? They played him 9 minutes and 35 seconds on average.
They knew. Like from when was
they knew what they had built to that point.
Know
what Dylan Holloway was? Yes, at that moment they did. Could Dylan Holloway have been much more usable by playoff time? Had there been a plan that they stuck with start to finish? Absolutely. He's ready to develop.
Yeah, he should have been in the minors. I said, I can't remember exactly when, but I believe it was November. I was saying it November, December, and then they couldn't because they had all these injuries. I had to keep him up. And he wasn't getting a lot of icing because he wasn't ready. Coaches, they'll play you when you're ready to play, and he wasn't ready. So would I be surprised if he starts in the minors? No, I wouldn't be. He had the injury, unfortunately, when he went down. Then he comes back up, and you can't insert him in that lineup at that time. But, this is a big – I maintain it, buddy. I think his second year, he always does well his second year. I think he'll take a pretty big step.
Yeah. They got to play him through whatever happens early. They have to be willing to do that with him. At a certain point, you have to just push him out there. Keep pushing him out there. And let him learn through those mistakes and keep the ice time there. He's not a guy that's trying to make mistakes. He's not a guy that cuts corners and cheats. Mm-hmm. And those are the guys you got to send the messages to. But if they're committing to Dylan Holloway being a top 9 forward this season, and I think they absolutely have to, I just would not have him on my fourth line. Because if the Oilers are going to hoist the Stanley Cup, I think there's a part to play in that for Dylan Holloway. And I don't think it's being a fourth line player. I think it's, playing this year in the American League a whole bunch so that he's really usable when they need him, but not just a bit player on the fourth line who's afraid to make mistakes and not generating anything offensively because you look around him and there's no one that can help him do that. I don't think that's the proper progression for a player of this pedigree, but we'll wait and see. You were going to talk about other guys to potentially add. You had a thought about a guy or two that maybe down the road might help. And in particular in this bottom six, because run it down, Struddy, there's kind of lacking a little beef, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, a little bit of gamesmanship, or there's just not a ton of it down there, right? Or in that bottom six.
So what are we're rolling it out as what? Holloway, McLeod, Fogle as a third line, Janmark, maybe Peterson, Ryan, Lavoie, maybe Kajula fights his way into the mix. So that's kind of the bottom 6-7 forwards.
Yeah. So they work hard and they're pretty fast. And that third line could be really fast actually, which would be a hell of a thing to play against. But in the playoffs, is Holloway experienced enough to be kind of a rugged player? Can McLeod add that to his game to take his game to another level? Fogle, he's pretty good at it, but he's not the leader of the band. So, I got this idea and I've been sitting on this one for a while, but after Vegas won the Stanley Cup, they talked a lot about Jonathan Quick. And I'm like, Jonathan Quick, he wasn't even allowed to take warm up. He got the cup pretty early though, didn't he? He did. And they talked about how, how Quick had helped them, with just Adin Hill specifically about preparing and being, winning Stanley Cups and all that kind of stuff. And I was thinking, okay, so the Oilers are in a similar position. Who was the guy talking about that in the room? Last year, I believe, and I might be wrong, I believe there wasn't one player who won a Stanley Cup in the room. Now, I might be wrong, but
I don't think they had any, did they?
No, now they've had guys been to the final. Ekholm had
been there, and but that was a major discrepancy. Look at Vegas and look at Edmonton and just the cup pedigree.
Yeah, and Connor Brown, did he get one? He didn't get one, did he? No, sorry. What am I talking about? He wasn't even on the team. Yep. So I don't think there was one. So I think the Oilers have to bring in players that can help with that type of conversation. Oh, people, the analytics, they'll show that makes a difference. Okay, but we just had the Vegas Golden Knights win a Stanley Cup, and their backup to the backup goalie was spoken of very highly immediately after winning the Stanley Cup. So they think it makes a difference.
Okay, so you want cup pedigree in the room. So you want them to go out and find a Stanley Cup champion to bring in, but where do you put him in the lineup? What caliber of player? Who is it? Who's the right guy, the right fit?
I'm going to assume that everyone fits in the top 6 for the Oilers, so it's probably not going to be a top 6 player.
So even if it's like a fourth line bit player in and out of the lineup guy.
Well, not in and out. That's a little different. And then it probably won't be a goalie, and I doubt it'd be now. It might be a D-man. That's a little hard, but I think the easiest place to slot him in would be the bottom 6. So I'm looking like what they did with Barbashev last year in Vegas, but the guy I think that would be the fit that kind of knocks off a few areas. And now it depends on this team still having success next year.
Just say the name. I'm just the anticipation here.
I'm trying to build it up. I like to build it up, a little excitement. The climax. Pat Maroon. And so Pat Maroon is traded from Tampa to the Wild. He's on $800,000 this year. Older player, doesn't have the wheels, but he has gamesmanship, right? He's won multiple Stanley Cups.
Right.
He knows the core of this team really well. He plays that heavier game. Now, obviously, I've seen him play next year and all that. I get it. And Minnesota traded for him for a reason, probably because Reeves is gone, so they're bringing this guy in. But all those. This is the type of guy that has that. That's one that can still contribute in your bottom 6.
He's a glue guy. Guy.
And then he can also hopefully contribute on the ice, right? And so that is, I think we as a people that watch the Oilers or fans, right? We have to start wrapping our head around who do we add, who do we bring in. When Duncan Keith was here, guys talked about the effect they had on the team. So how do you slot a couple guys into your lineup? I think it's in that bottom 6.
Interesting. Pat Maroon, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be all about the feet. He's that guy who is really close to not being able to get there in a meaningful enough way to play at all. If he can still get there, then I'm good with it. He's the right guy in the room, right relationships. He tight with Connor. He was really popular when he was here, good in the media. So I like the name. I think it's a good suggestion. And he's got tons of experience, different experience than he had the last time he was in Oilers. So he brings all those things, but then, he went off and did all that and won all that. And now you bring the right person back who's now got the right experience. That's not a bad midsummer call, Struddy. Not too shabby for mid-July.
Yeah. So this is the type of guy I'm talking about. And there may be able to go up a bit higher, up the lineup. Maybe you bring in a guy who's a second line player, but who has to play in your third line because your top six is set. Like we're so far away, but I'm just, we as a group, I get it. We have to figure this out. How do you add more of this experience? Because when things get tough, and they always get tough in a playoff run, how do you bring that guy in, and how do you find him? Where do you find him? What does he look like? Where does he fit in? All that stuff. So I think that's an important thing to think about when you're thinking about mid-season acquisitions next year.
That's a good suggestion, man. I like that. Well, this would be a great clip to go pull in February, late February, where the trade deadline is coming, and we're talking about potentially that being the type of player. Maybe it'll be a grand prognostication from you, Struddy.
Yeah, ahead of my time.
Zuby, you paying attention in the background there, my man? Time to get to what some of the people are saying. We're live streaming on Twitter and on YouTube, and asked for your comments. So do you have a thought on Struddy's suggestion about Pat Maroon? You have a thought on what we were talking about earlier with Bouchard, McLeod? Anything else? Zuby, what mood is Oiler Nation in today, buddy?
Yeah, I got a few on those, but this is sort of for fun, but Struddy, let me throw out another name for you in the realm of what you were just talking about, a guy who is a UFA and has that championship pedigree, not the physical presence. What about Phil Kessel?
Oh, God. Oh, boy.
That's it. I think that he was also in Vegas last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know that I think that Phil is running out of juice. And I'm not suggesting Pat Maroon isn't getting near the end of his juice, but I think Phil has he signed
It's
anywhere?
definitely a different kind of juice. You know what I mean? Like the things that Maroon can still bring.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Sorry, maybe Phil's more in line with the Jonathan Quick side of things, because he wasn't even playing in the clinch. Like he didn't play in the finals, I don't think. Could Phil bring that?
I don't know.
Well, he has to get through the regular season. I don't know where he fits in on this team. Like if he
scored 14 goals last year, Struds. He had 36 points in 82 games, 14 goals. So I mean, can still score, I guess.
Yeah. I don't. Well, he hasn't signed. I don't think he's signed anywhere. Am I correct? I'm pretty sure that he has.
He's UFA, yeah.
Yeah, are the intangibles? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Like
Maroon brings a different set of intangibles. Like
yeah,
Maroon,
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I think I'm going to pass on that one.
Yeah.
But the idea is correct, right? A guy who's older, who could. I mean, Jonathan Toews would be pure money. Like that is the guy. And there's a lot of reports out there. Mark Spector, one of them, saying that Duncan Keith's been keeping track of him, and he's not even really put himself out there to be signed. So that is the guy. That'd be my number one guy if I could bring him in. That'd be the guy.
Interesting.
But I don't know if he'd be even available. And
was that your suggestion, Zuby, or was that?
It was a name. Yeah, it was me. It was a name that popped that I was kind of thinking about. And saw that he was still UFA. So that was a Zuby original. Yeah. Let me go to the people here.
The original.
Let me go to the people here, and I'm just going to kind of combine two. I had one fella earlier on Twitter, Bert, said, what are the chances of Broberg playing a top 4 role on the right side this season? I'm not sure about that, but there was a later comment. I thought this is really interesting. Jayla OG on the YouTube stream said, is the solution simply to trade Kulak, Broberg, a cheaper replacement, and it opens up the cap space for McLeod and Bouchard, and have Broberg move up into that left side bottom pair?
Yeah, they really like Kulak. They went and got Kulak for a reason, and all he's done is perform to basically exactly what they wanted from him. So, yeah, it does clear up some space, Struds, but then you don't have Brett Kulak anymore, and he's been good when it's important. Yeah,
before the playoffs this year, I said that they have to find a path for Broberg to play a regular shift, and that was a guy that was clearly going to be traded out. I said that I'm on record saying that. And it's not because I don't like the player, but when Broberg is this morning in Sweden doing his bench press, he's like, "Hey, what number am I? Am I like I'm the 4th left shot defenseman on this team, right?" So there's no clear path for him. So yes, I think there would be a market for Kulak. He's a very solid defenseman, and you see some of the numbers that guys are getting set or where we're getting paid as I think would be 3rd pairing defenseman. I think he's a 5. He's a 5. So the problem is if you trade him when you put Broberg in there, all of a sudden your depth is very shallow. There's
Oh,
nobody.
yeah.
Like
You got
now you're
problems, man.
6 deep, and that's assuming all those 6 are ready to be 82 game and hopefully 16 victory defensemen in the playoffs. So that is like Zuby. I know you're a risk taker by some of the hats you wear, but I didn't know you're quite that much of a risk taker.
Yeah, I just thought it's a suggestion that I like Kulak too, and he was fabulous in the playoffs. But when you got to look for solutions. So I understand this suggestion. What about something I don't think we touched on is, especially when it comes to Bouchard. Well, I think McLeod would be out of offer sheet territory because he's filed for arbitration, if I understand that correctly. But we haven't really talked about the possibility of an offer sheet for Bouchard. Do you guys think that's a possibility? And if so, maybe speculate, what would someone sign him for with the intention of making it so the Oilers could not match?
Yeah, I mean, offer sheets get talked about every year, and you can make a case for it because if somebody went silly with Bouchard, it'd put the Oilers in a bad spot for sure. But that's often talked about, seldom executed, and there's a reason for that. Rarely does it work. The other thing too is if you're Bouchard's camp, like what number do you need to have put in front of you to make that worthwhile, and how many years is it? Because people that are making these, if anyone makes this offer sheet, like you don't know where the cap is going to be, and Bouchard is going to pile up the points here in Edmonton. So what does that number look like compared to the one that the Oilers might be looking at giving him in 2 seasons? So do I think he's exposed a little bit? Yeah. Do I think it's likely? Struds, we just don't see it, man. And there's a reason we don't see it.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty big number, I think, to push the Oilers away. Because again, you have to replace the player. So let's say someone offer sheets him at $6.5 million. Just so that's probably, you're getting up to the point where Oilers can't take it. So, okay, we're going to walk away. Now the Oilers have, I don't know what it is, let's say a first round pick, and they have $3 million to replace Bouchard with, right? So that's a pretty hard replacement to go out and find a power play guy for $3 million. They can run it on that pairing. Now you might call Nashville and say, can we bring back Tyson Barrie? I don't know, but that's the struggle. And then also, I'll go back to my earlier point. Is he the catalyst of your power play today? Mm-hmm. Bouchard? I don't know. I would think it'd be more the other guys that are catalyst of the power play, and he's a part that keeps the puck moving around, but not the catalyst like we've seen from guys I would call true power play runners like a Carlson type player.
All right, Zuby, we're pushing an hour here, so we got to wrap up. But let's blast in some quick rapid fire comments from people. Throw them at Struds and I, and we'll give sort of quick answers, and we'll try and squeeze as many in as we can here. We thank everybody for joining us on the live stream.
I got 2 quick hockey ones and 1 non-hockey one to wrap it
Perfect.
up. So Austin Peterson asked, with the contracts needing to be signed, should Holland have waited to sign the UFAs until after Bouchard was signed to ensure we have the cap space?
Yeah, the bit players like the Petersons and those sorts of guys. Yeah. I mean, he could have waited, and I actually thought that they might take their time. But I think with Peterson, I think they liked what they saw there, and I think they feel like there's potential there. So my sense on that one was they were being opportunistic. But waiting could have, if you save space, waiting helps, I guess, to a degree, Struddy.
Well, you still need players to dress and play. The guys they signed, none of them are you can stash them all in the minors, right? Mm-hmm. And without it, it's not like they're at $6 million. Mm-hmm. Even Connor Brown, his salary is not that much. So everything was done with an eye towards the cap. So yeah, I'm glad. I think they were right to sign him when they did.
Our friend CK Pon on Twitter, Ryan, agreeing with you, sort of saying that, Nurse got 43 points this year with zero first unit, or not zero, but very little first unit power play time. If he ran it, he could probably get 65, 70. And then that 9.25, then like you said, that looks a lot different, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. And again, it's a unique situation when you got a $9+ million guy who doesn't run the power play, so then you got to pay somebody else to play with those guys and pile up those points. But it's just the situation they're in, right? It's the situation they're in, and there's not much you can do about it. Bouchard's proven himself to be able to handle that. And yeah, he's an important piece of this, right? Moving Evan Bouchard and giving the power play to Darnell Nurse. That is a massive shift on this team, and I don't see it happening.
No, and it's just the way they deploy their defensemen, it just wouldn't work. It'd be too many minutes for Nurse.
Yeah.
He's already at 25 minutes, isn't he? Or 24 or something.
Okay, and finally, a non-hockey one to wrap it up here. This is from Dylan Hergut, and he says, what's up, boys? Non-hockey small talk question. What do you fellas enjoy as a summer-only hobby? Mastering the grill or a summer-only sport?
I'm into golf right now, big time.
You're hitting it hard, eh, Struds?
I'm
on
just
the course?
loving it. I'm just loving it.
Me too.
So Shogger and I are going to play with some buddies on Friday, and we all had to give our handicap, and I put mine at a 12, which I think is fair. It's coming down, and they're going around the table, and Ryan says, mine's a 12. And I looked over, I'm like, what? You're a 12? Like, I just spanked you about 3 weeks earlier.
Just a second.
I did.
Hang on a minute.
You.
What do you mean
I'm trying to help you?
Me? We have yet to complete a round of golf together. First of all, because you're the hardest guy to nail down for a day. So we haven't even played. We played 5 holes in the rain, and you went out of your mind for 5 holes, and now suddenly you're going to chirp me in my handicap. You haven't even seen me play yet.
I've seen you play enough to know that you're not a 12, and I'm trying. I was trying to support. Like, you're like, why? I felt like you were saying you're being mean. I'm not. You're cheating yourself. Just say you're a 20. I would have said that sounds about right. That sounds about right.
20.
I wouldn't have been upset.
All right, Struds. Well, you got no choice now. Now we actually are going to have to play head-to-head, you versus me. You put your money where your chirping is, buddy.
Oh, the match 4.0 or whatever, 5 point.
Yeah.
We'll get that live streamed on. We'll live stream the match. That would be amazing.
We'll tee off at 10. I'll be out here at 12:05.
Oh God. Zuby, we can barely keep a live stream together in our home studios. I can imagine the logistics of trying to do one from a golf course.
Me following you guys around the course with my iPhone.
Exactly. All right, good stuff today, guys. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the stream. Good to chat with everybody. Thanks for your comments. We'll drop a couple of these through the summer. We're not going to overdo it because everybody needs a break, but if and when there's news, we'll pop in. We know you're thirsty for content as well, so we're going to do what we can this summer, but really gearing up for September. We'll have some more announcements on that in the coming months, but we're going to go hard in September and try and fill a bit of the void that's out there. So big thanks to our sponsors. Looking forward to golfing with the crew from Mid-City tomorrow and taking a 6-pack off of Struds. Should be fun out at Belvedere. So Zuby, thanks. Struds, nice job. Thanks to our sponsors, Mr. Dirk, Sherwood Buick GMC, and all of our other great sponsors as well, DLR Vinyl Products. We'll chat with you real soon, folks. Enjoy your July, and we'll talk to you when we talk to you.